For me, what we do at Chubby Fish is very much like playing jazz. You know, we have a set of sheet music as a guide, but we're just riffing and playing improv the whole day and the whole night.
A Parent Wins, an adventure of a lifetime. A global expedition dedicated to collecting stories of environmental and cultural preservation while conducting marine research aboard sailing vessel Resilience.
Talk about a community, you talk about food, right? And like culture, you talk about food oftentimes. And for this part of the world, that's shrimp, oysters, fish, clams, you know, all these things that we get from the ocean here because we are a seafaring community. When you look at the water here, and if you've seen any old photos or paintings of this part of the world, you'll see shrimp boats and fishing boats. You'll see cast nets and little john boats. And so the fishing industry is a huge part of the identity of this part of the world. All of this comes together because of a confluence or a large region land where rivers are coming to the sea. I love these marshes and the estuaries that cover the Lowcountry, and of course I love seafood and love, you know, everything that really comes with it. It's a big part of our culture, and so, you know, the question is, what's our impact? And to learn more about that, I decided to reach out to our friend James London, who is an incredible chef at a seafood restaurant here in Charleston, who also has a really strong passion for diverse and sustainable seafood in this region.
Ever since I was young, I've always been fascinated with seafood. There's just so much diversity when it comes to species in South Carolina. And so, you know, I worked in New York for a while and I worked in San Francisco, and I always knew like the seafood we got here in Charleston was just so much superior to what we were getting in those other cities. And on top of that, the species diversity is insane in Charleston. You're getting so much more species than anywhere else, and it's because we have the South Atlantic fishery and we have the Mid-Atlantic fishery, and they're overlapping right at Charleston. And so we're basically getting double the fun. And even to this day, I still have fishermen who bring me stuff and they say, I don't know if you can work with it. And my whole philosophy with seafood is it's all incredible once you figure out how to cook it.
We only target certain species that are marketable, and part of that means that we are taking away just those certain parts of the food chain, so it messes with the entire food chain.
What we're trying to do at Chubby Fish is highlight the diversity of species. You'll never see halibut on the menu at Chubby Fish. You'll never see salmon on the menu.
James cooks everything. He cooks the things that aren't marketable and makes them delicious, and that's what people come back for. He's really expanding people's minds and palates at the same time, and that's really, really cool. And hopefully people will start to experiment more with different species and will spread out the stress more on the different species of seafood, so it's not just one species that is constantly being targeted.
Part of the impetus for opening Chubby Fish in the first place is, yes, there was restaurants that were doing good seafood here in Charleston, and you could go and you could get a fried flounder, and you could go and get the snapper and the grouper. But I knew that there was so much more fish out there that was not being celebrated, and fish that was readily available.
So when you go to a grocery store and you see the same like 30 fruits and vegetables over and over again in all the same grocery stores, but we know that there are thousands of varieties of fruits and vegetables all over the world. And it's kind of the same thing in the seafood industry. You just see the same fish over and over again, but there are literally tens of thousands of fish that you can eat in the ocean. And so it really all goes back to eating local. You should be eating the fish that is available where you live.
We try to make sure that everything that we put in front of you is coming from this place. And what we really get excited about, what we really get jazzed up about, is when fishermen reach out to us and say, hey, we got this pink porgy, or we got this jolthead, or we got this banded redderfish, or we got this black-bellied rosefish. The stuff that people aren't lining up to order, that's the stuff that we want, because we like that challenge. We love the fact that we're serving something that's not overfished. We love the bycatch. The bycatch is what really excites us. I think gone are the days where you're just filleting the fish, taking the middle part of it, and throwing everything else in the trash. If we can make something delicious out of all the offcuts, and the customers really get behind it and get excited about it, it's a win-win for everyone. For me, what we do at Chubby Fish is very much like playing jazz, and it's improv based. We're not, we have a set of sheet music as a guide, but we're just riffing and playing improv the whole day and the whole night. I had a chef back in New York who taught me cook like water. And what that means is water is constantly flowing, and it's moving around rocks and moving against banks, and it's just constantly evolving and finding a path. And so to this day, my cooking has very much been shaped like that, so that we don't have to have a set menu that's printed every day. Our menu is based off of magnets that are written in chalk paint, and we erase it every day and we write it back up every day and put it back up. We're able to make sense of what our fishermen brought us, and it's more fun for us, it's more interesting for us. We're able to create, and it forces us to create, and it forces us to constantly be evolving.
So when we were at Chubby Fish, we learned about some of the people that supply the seafood to Chubby Fish. One of those was Tarvin Seafood, and so we went over and talked to them, and they were really great, but they really emphasized how important it was to support local seafood.
The commercial fishing industry in Charleston in general has just been really declining. If you look at Shim Creek from the time that I was growing up, I used to walk down there and my grandmother would paint all the shrimp boats, and you'd see them stacked 4 or 5 deep on Shim Creek. So there was like a very narrow little waterway to get through there, and now you can count them on one hand.
It's interesting just because seafood's such a big part of this area, but the industry's changed so much, the oceans are changing so much. We see it on a daily basis, but to actually talk to the folks that are on the front line and really know what's going on there and deal with it day to day, and it is their livelihood, is really interesting.
I don't know, it's just something about being on the ocean, being on the water, that's just in my blood. And I don't know what it is. I just really don't know what it is, but I always tend to come back here. I'm Cola Tarvin. I was the youngest of the family, but I have a 14-month-old son now who is the youngest. I oversee and manage everything like the restaurant orders, mainly the fish house. I manage the purchasing of the shrimp, do all the maintenance around here, plumbing, electrical, all sorts of stuff. I don't know where shrimping is going to be in 10 years. It seems like every year we catch less and less, or they're harder and harder to get. We have to go further and further to get them. So there's a lot of uncertainty.
Running a seafood business is a challenge no matter where you are. You know, it's a hard industry in the best of times, and these are not the best of times. Sustainability in seafood is, of course, huge, and it's really important. Of the various species that are managed, shrimp is probably the easiest. Shrimp have a lifespan of about a year, so it's fairly easy to manage that fishery. In South Carolina, the Department of Natural Resources does it. They look at, in the spring, they look at water temperature, they look at number of shrimp that have spawned, they look at the size of the shrimp and where they're catching them. There are some shrimpers that think that is not fair to them, but I think many fishermen, shrimpers included, would continue to fish a resource until it is entirely gone. And I think that protecting the species makes long-term sense. You know, the shrimp that spawn in the spring are our fall crop. The shrimp that spawn in the fall are our spring crop. And so if in the fall they're catching a lot of small shrimp, that's the time to close, because those are the shrimp that are gonna grow up and spawn and be caught. I think the industry is in a reasonably precarious position. I don't think it's necessarily going to become extinct, but many of the fishermen are aging out. And unless younger people come in, it's going to be a problem. I think if we can get enough younger people that are interested in building this, it will be thriving. That also assumes that the environment doesn't continue to degrade. I mean, there are fewer shrimp around Charleston than there were. And it's not only because of overfishing. You know, it doesn't take an environmental scientist or even anyone thinking very deeply to recognize that when you pave over a good bit of your coastline, or you have golf courses or homes that have fertilizer and runoff and all of that, it degrades the marsh. And that's the estuaries for, you know, the nurseries for shrimp. So when you make that all go away, it doesn't take a lot more. And that, I think, is an issue that will be long-term. You know, sea level rise will be an issue that's long-term.
I mean, talking to James and talking to the Tarvins and talking to a lot of the folks that we've been talking to lately, talking to my friends that also work in conservation, a lot of them here, I am really hopeful that there are ways that we can live here responsibly. Lately, I've been really thinking about some of the ideas that we first started with. You know, we've started this whole project in Alaska with Luis Brady, but basically talking about the connection to nature. And when we have these complex, overwhelming problems that we're facing, lately I've been getting a lot of reprieve and just coming back to that simple thought, like, how do we connect with nature better? How do we re-understand our relationship with nature? We've been working on the boat this whole time, and we're just starting to talk to folks and learn more about what people are doing here right now. We're just starting to dive into environment and seafood, but I can't wait to hear the stories that we have coming down the line. We have a lot of incredible people that we still have to meet with. We have a lot of incredible stories to hear, and spring is coming, and it gets me really excited about what we have coming up.
If you want to access more content, consider joining our community on Patreon. You can find details in the video description. Thank you so much for watching.